Hi, Dr. J. It's me, Jeanette. Sorry for the late video. But so thinking further of my project, talking about opening doors and kind of bridging that gap in communication between kids, specifically adolescents, and the general population, is something that I think is really important, specifically through a lot of work that I've done in juvenile, also being at this current practicum site, which is at Homeless Prenatal in San Francisco, which mostly works with pregnant mothers, but there are a lot of these women who have CPS cases and who have their children are in custody of clients' parents, so grandparents, older aunts and stuff. So that also further made me think of this specific project for creating opening doors. And so I actually would like to pilot this program with Homeless Prenatal, because at Homeless Prenatal, it's a nonprofit organization, but it really is like a central hub for so many things that happens at this agency, from mental health services, from like triage, providing basic needs such as diapers, food, wipes, baby needs, clothing, helps with job readiness and how to prepare, and even offers like business clothing. There's prenatal yoga and acupuncture and massage, and there's housing support, which helps women and families gain housing in the Bay Area and helps pay for like deposit. There's keeping families together and family treatment court, which is something that I would like to partner more with their case managers, and those are who are in the CPS system, and their children are removed, so they're work with these case managers to ensure that they are going through all the appropriate steps that's necessary to keep the family together, or bringing families home, essentially, also, which is another division of Homeless Prenatal. So there's a lot of things that this organization does. And I think in classes that they offer also, they have father parenting groups, domestic violence support groups, parenting classes, know your infant, breastfeeding. So there's a multitude of things that go on at this organization. And so having opening doors would be something that I think would be beneficial to the organization. And like I said, partner with CPS, work with, the mental health team, as well as like, family treatment court and keeping families together, case managers, for follow-up, case management. And so ideally in this program, I would like for it to be like 12 weeks, like I said, in the evening. So kind of looking at it like, 1 day a week where, the caregiver doesn't have to cook, and we provide dinner for everyone, and it sort of be like family style, so that, there can be some social relationships that are built, with other parents or grandparents that are going through similar situations, and be able to establish some social connection and networking. Also children, seeing that they're not the only ones who right now are in foster care, or whose parents are not involved in their lives right now, and not feeling like they're the only specific one. And also building, social support and networking amongst, adolescents and children as well. So, that would look like, at the beginning, could start with, having dinner, providing food, beverages and snacks, and having that for a specific time. And then also then breaking out into groups. So, we'd have like, the adult group and then the children's group. And the adult group would really just be providing like, once again, like support, like a place to be able to like discuss your feelings and emotions of, how this process has been, finding support in one another, providing psychoeducation on really looking at, what drives you today, talking about talk about various things like how does technology really impact youth now, looking at the adolescent stage and providing psychoeducation on, you know, what that looks like, you know, the storm and stress period in adolescence when, you know, it's a storm for adolescent because they're trying to figure out who they are in life and what they want to be. And it's a stress for the parent because it's like they don't know how to deal with this storm that their adolescent is going through and how to properly communicate. They're, you know, learning the different styles on communicating with someone who is 7 or 8 versus how do you communicate with someone who's like 13 or 14, which, you know, varies. And so having people come in, like, sort of, if you want to call it like a didactic style of training, and having people come in from like the infant, you know, from like that provide the parenting classes and come in and do a class on really talking about like, you know, development and talking about puberty and how that impacts both male and female differently. So providing some education on that, providing education on the adolescent stage and what that looks like also. And then talking about communication and how best to communicate by establishing like role plays amongst, you know, the older population, and having like the older, you know, having like a, say, a dyad, and having one person, you know, act out different scenarios and act out the teenager and one being the adult. And then so like what does that look like, and seeing the outside of the rest of the group that's witnessing the role play that's going on and how that looks like from the outside perspective versus how it feels on the, you know, for those who are role playing, and how that actually feels, and then having like a dialogue and discussion about that. So that's what that would look like for the adult side. On the children's side, it's also talking about, you know, how do they feel like not being with their parents? What is that like for what's the experience, and having that discussion amongst like the adolescents. You may be even having two groups, like an adolescent group and a younger children group, because that certainly would be different as far as discussion goes, and talking about that. And also providing them with psychoeducation, right, on puberty, how that impacts them. Talking about, you know, with attachment, also on both sides, what, you know, what happens when we kind of lose the attachment in our lives, and how do we restructure our attachment to who we are, you know, with now. So looking at that for the kids, you know, doing icebreakers also on both sides, so that, you know, they can start to get to know each other, and like I said, develop a social support and a network amongst each other. And then probably break out back to like a snack time or something to get everyone to kind of take a break from, you know, all the information that has been brought to them, to kind of decompress and, you know, go back somehow to end the session together as a big group, you know, doing fun incentives like playing a game, or doing like raffles, to where, you know, someone wins each time from each group. So from like a teenage group, from like the young child group, from like the adult group. And so giving them some incentive, like, okay, like I'm also learning, but they're also helping me learn in the aspect by also like providing me with this, giving me a moment to help take care of myself, help me have dialogue and conversation with someone else, instead of just who I have in the home, and just dealing with this child also. And maybe even trying to expand it to where maybe we can do like a movie night or something, and the caregivers can bring their kids, and we just provide like a movie with some popcorn and something, and then they can just have a free time to either just be within amongst themselves and be able to have conversation, or just want like some just time away. Something like that also would be good. And so I envision having this being led and facilitated, you know, by like the mental health interns that are at this organization. Certainly, you know, as this organization grows, the level, like the amount of interns will grow. And so being able to have them participate in that as well. You know, having the educators that come in and do these presentations on the different things that I previously mentioned would also be part of that. then, connecting them also with therapy, as far as then having, a dyad happen, to where they can have conversation and have the therapist really give them the strategies and tools in order to navigate through the CPS system and navigate how to be able to adjust to this new life for both the child and to the caregiver as well. And then following once the cycle is over, like 12 sessions, then having some follow through go with the case managers from, keeping families together or family treatment court, and having them follow through just to see, what the status is, how they're doing, like how is the relationship going. And if necessary, this agency has a volume to bring on a set of case managers that's specific for the children, if this were to be something that would be ongoing. And so then having case managers specific for the children do a check-in to see, how is their family unit going, or even it being reported to their protective service worker, which technically works for the children, and having that self-report of how, this class really fitted the relationship. Has there been improvement? Has there not? If there's not, why not? What needs to be done? And also, them, meaning like the caregiver, getting like a certificate of completion. They completed this class, and that goes in hand with being able to continue maintaining custody, if it's temporary for the child, as well. And so that way, like, that communication can be established. And then if this grows, so in how we check on the growth, right, is really looking at getting feedback from evaluation forms, so having like a, right after, see, like, as this was going on, has there been some improvement? What did you like about this series? What, getting suggestions on what would you like to see happen, in the next round. Also, maybe doing like a 3-month follow-up of how things have been since completing the series. If you could do it all over again, what that would look like, what should be added. And if this was to be successful, like even adding like a second component. So just perfect example, at my agency is facilitating the domestic violence group. And so my suggestion was, because 8 weeks was really not a long time to really provide psychoeducation and process, that my suggestion was like, let's do like a phase 2. So doing, the psychoeducation piece, and then a processing piece, and then later adding a third component of a healing group. So once I've received all this psychoeducation on DV, now I'm in phase 2 of really processing everything that I experienced. And then now that I've processed, now I'm ready to heal. And so due to suggestion, we then did implement a healing group, also. So that was going pretty well up until COVID. So I would like to do something similar to that if this idea were to be successful, and add like a phase 2. So it would be more of a, continuing to follow up to see how everything's been going, and how there can be some improvement, and working a little deeper into what the root of the problem is, or making sure then that we are then, referring these clients to, long-term therapy, both for like the parent, and both meaning the caregiver, and for the child as well, to see, has this child had a lot of trauma, and so all their trauma is what's impacting the relationship with the grandparent. Has nothing to do with, not wanting to be with the grandparent, but they just have a lot of trauma. So really ensuring that, the needs are really embedded and really looked at and really worked on, so that, as this process goes on, because for some, like, it's like a year, for some it's 2 years, and some, and, parents end up getting their services terminated. So are these children going to be long-term? So really being able to work in that aspect. So looking at, like I said, both working with, the older population, the adolescent population, and really looking at like culture also, and talking about culture and how culture really impacts also how we communicate with our elders, and what's appropriate and what's not, and how to kind of demystify, what would be considered disrespectful when that's not really it. So yeah, that's my project. If you have any questions, please let me know. Thank you.